Nothing is wrong in your life, and that's what's confusing you the most. Everything looks fine. No crisis, no real problem, nothing falling apart. And yet, there's this quiet anxiety inside you that won't leave. It follows you when things get calm. It shows up in silence. It appears when everything is supposed to feel okay. And the more you try to understand it, the more lost you feel. So you start asking yourself, what is wrong with me? But what if? Nothing is wrong with you. What if this anxiety is not coming from your life at all, but from a mind that doesn't know how to be at peace when there is nothing left to fix? Because once you see this clearly, everything you feel finally starts to make sense. Your mind is addicted to problems, so peace feels unnatural. Your mind was trained to stay busy, not to be still, but to be active, to look for issues, to solve, to prepare, to prevent. For years, this has been your normal way of living. Every day, your mind learned one thing very deeply: stay alert, or something might go wrong. So now, even when nothing is wrong, your mind doesn't know how to relax. It doesn't know how to switch off. It doesn't know how to simply be. Instead, it keeps moving. It keeps searching. It keeps scanning your life, your future, your thoughts, trying to find something to work on. Because a mind that is used to problems feels uncomfortable without them. It feels like something is missing. It feels like it should be doing something, fixing something, thinking about something. So when life becomes quiet, your mind creates noise. Not real noise, but mental noise. Small thoughts, tiny doubts. What if something goes wrong? What if I'm missing something important? What if this calm doesn't last? And slowly, that quiet moment turns into tension. Not because your life changed, but because your mind started filling the space. This is why peace feels strange to you, not because peace is empty, but because your mind is not used to it. You have lived so long in thinking, planning, worrying, that stillness now feels unnatural. It almost feels uncomfortable to just sit without doing anything, without solving anything, without thinking about the next step. So your mind pulls you back into activity. It gives you something to think about, something to worry about, something to hold on to. Because doing nothing feels unsafe to a mind that has always been busy. But here is what you need to understand. This is not a problem. This is a habit, a deep habit your mind has learned over time. And habits can be seen, and once you see it clearly, you stop believing that something is wrong with your life. You start realizing your mind is just doing what it was trained to do, nothing more, nothing less. And in that realization, a small gap appears, a small pause, where you don't immediately follow the thought, where you don't immediately believe the worry. You just notice it. You just watch it. And in that moment, for the first time, you begin to experience something different. Not forced peace, not fake calm, but a natural stillness that was always there, waiting for you, behind all the noise your mind kept creating. When life gets quiet, you feel like something is missing. There comes a moment when everything slows down, no pressure, no noise, no urgency pulling you in different directions. Just a quiet space. And this is the moment you thought would bring peace. This is the moment you thought you were waiting for. But instead, something feels off, something feels incomplete. You sit there and instead of feeling calm, you feel a strange emptiness. Not a painful emptiness, but a confusing one, like something should be happening, but isn't, like you forgot something, but you don't know what, and slowly your mind starts reacting to that silence. This doesn't feel right. Why is it so quiet? Shouldn't I be doing something? And without realizing it, you begin to resist the calm. You start looking for something to fill the space. You reach for your phone, you open something, you think about something, you create something to engage with, because staying in that quiet moment feels uncomfortable. But not because the moment is wrong, because you are not used to it. You have spent so much of your life moving from one thing to another, always busy, always distracted, always engaged. Even when you were resting, your mind was still active, thinking, planning, replaying. So now, when life finally gives you a moment of stillness, it feels unfamiliar, almost like standing in a place you've never been before. And the mind doesn't like unfamiliar spaces. It wants something known, something predictable, something it can control. So it tries to fill the silence. It creates thoughts. It creates questions. It creates a sense that something is missing. But the truth is, nothing is missing. Nothing is wrong. This quiet moment is actually complete. It's just not filled with noise, and you've been so used to noise that silence now feels empty. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is space. Space to breathe. Space to feel. Space to exist. Without pressure, without demand, without movement. And at first, this space feels uncomfortable because you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to stay in it. So your mind tries to escape it. But if you stay just a little longer, without reacting, without filling it, without running away, something begins to change. That same silence that once felt uncomfortable starts to feel soft, gentle, safe. And slowly, you begin to realize something powerful. There was never anything missing. You were just not used to having nothing to chase. And in that realization, for the first time, you don't try to escape the quiet, you allow it. And in allowing it, you discover a kind of peace that was always there, but always covered by the constant noise of your mind. Even in good moments, you're secretly waiting for something to go wrong. There are moments in your life when everything feels right on the surface. Things are stable, nothing is falling apart, and for a brief second it seems like you can finally relax. But even in those moments, something inside you stays alert, almost like a quiet guard that refuses to sit down. You smile, you continue your day, you talk to people, you go through your routine. But deep inside, there is a small voice that doesn't fully trust what is happening, a voice that keeps whispering that this calm will not last, that something might change, that something might break without warning. And you don't even notice how quickly your mind shifts from enjoying the moment to preparing for the loss of it, because instead of fully being present, your attention slowly moves into the future, trying to predict what could go wrong, trying to protect you from a pain that has not even arrived. This is not because you are weak, and it is not because your life is unstable. It is because your mind has learned over time that good moments are temporary, that peace does not stay forever, and that at any moment something unexpected can appear and change everything. So instead of relaxing into the beauty of the present, your mind stays ready. It keeps scanning your life for signs, for small details, for anything that could hint at a coming problem. And this constant scanning creates a quiet tension inside you that never fully leaves. Even when nothing is happening, your body carries a feeling of waiting, as if something is about to shift, as if you need to stay prepared, as if letting your guard down would be a mistake you might regret later. And the more you do this, the more your mind turns normal moments into uncertain ones, because when you keep looking for danger, Even the safest situation begins to feel unstable. Even the calmest moment starts to feel like the beginning of something you cannot control. You start questioning things that do not need to be questioned. You start doubting moments that are actually fine. And slowly, without realizing it, you lose the ability to fully enjoy what is already in front of you, because instead of living the moment, you are standing slightly outside of it, watching it, analyzing it, and preparing for its end before it has even finished. But here is the deeper truth you rarely see. Your mind is not trying to ruin your peace. It is trying to protect you in the only way it knows, by staying alert, by expecting change, by making sure you are never caught off guard. The problem is not the intention, and the problem is the habit. Because when this pattern becomes automatic, you stop living freely and you start living carefully, always holding back a part of yourself, always waiting for the moment when things might go wrong. And in that constant state of quiet anticipation, anxiety is created, not because something is happening, but because your mind refuses to trust that this moment can simply exist without turning into something else. But if you look closely, if you slow down and observe this pattern without immediately following it, you begin to see something very clear. Nothing is actually going wrong in this moment. Nothing is collapsing. Nothing is breaking. The danger your mind is preparing for does not exist right now. It is only a projection, a possibility, a story built from past experiences and future fears, and the moment you see it as a story instead of a reality, something inside you begins to soften. You no longer feel the need to constantly prepare. You no longer feel the need to guard every moment, and slowly, gently, you allow yourself to step back into the present without carrying the weight of what might happen next. And in that shift, you rediscover something you have been missing for a long time: the ability to experience a good moment without trying to protect yourself from losing it, the ability to simply be there without fear, without anticipation, without holding back. Because not every peaceful moment is a setup for pain, and not every calm experience needs to be questioned. Sometimes it is just a moment, simple, complete, and enough on its own. And the more you allow yourself to stay in it without expecting it to disappear, the more your mind slowly learns something new, something it was never taught before: that it is safe to be here, safe to feel this, and safe to let the moment exist without turning it into something else. You turn simple thoughts into heavy realities. Without realizing it, a thought appears in your mind, quiet, small, almost unnoticeable. It could be anything: a simple question, a passing doubt, a random memory. At first, it has no weight. It comes, and it could easily go. But instead of letting it pass, you hold on to it. You look at it more closely. You start thinking about it. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to build around it. You add meaning. You add emotion. You connect it to other thoughts. You start asking more questions. What if this means something? What if this leads to something bigger? What if I'm missing something important? And just like that, a light thought becomes heavy. A small moment turns into a mental story. And the more attention you give it, the more real it starts to feel, because your mind has a powerful habit. Whatever you focus on, it expands. Whatever you repeat, it strengthens. So a simple idea, when repeated again and again, starts to feel like truth. It starts to feel urgent. It starts to feel like something you need to solve. But if you pause for a moment and step back, you begin to see something clearly. The thought itself was never the problem. It was just a spark. What gave it weight was your attention. What made it heavy was your repetition. What made it feel real was your belief in it. You didn't just think the thought, you built a world around it. And now you're not just observing it, you're inside it, feeling it, reacting to it, carried by it. And this is where anxiety quietly grows. Not from reality, but from the stories your mind creates and then believes. Because the mind doesn't always separate imagination from truth. If something is repeated enough, it begins to feel real, even if nothing has actually happened, even if nothing is actually wrong. And the more you try to solve these thoughts, the deeper you go into them, because you're treating something imagined as something real. You're trying to fix a problem that was created inside your thinking. But here is what changes everything. You don't have to follow every thought. You don't have to complete every mental story. You don't have to answer every question your mind creates. A thought can appear, and you can simply notice it, without adding to it, without continuing it, without turning it into something bigger. You can let it come and let it go, just like a cloud passing through the sky. Because not every thought deserves your attention, and not every thought needs your belief. The moment you stop feeding a thought, it loses its power. The moment you stop repeating it, it begins to fade, and slowly you start to experience something different. Your mind becomes lighter, quieter, less crowded, because you're no longer turning every small thought into a heavy reality. You're no longer creating problems out of passing ideas. You're simply allowing thoughts to exist without giving them control over you. And in that shift, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Space. A quiet space inside your mind where not every thought becomes a burden and not every moment becomes a struggle. Your body is here, but your mind is lost somewhere else. You are sitting in a calm place. Nothing urgent is happening. Nothing around you is demanding your attention. And yet, inside you, there is movement, constant, quiet movement that never seems to stop. Your body is here, in this room, in this moment. But your mind is somewhere else entirely, moving through places that do not exist right now, replaying things that already ended, imagining things that have not even begun, creating conversations, outcomes, and possibilities that are not real in this moment. You look still from the outside, but inside, your mind is running. It moves into the future, trying to figure out what might happen next, trying to prepare, trying to stay one step ahead, as if thinking more will give you control, as if staying mentally active will protect you from uncertainty. And when it is not in the future, it drifts into the past, replaying moments, analyzing what you said, what you should have said, what could have been different, holding on to things that no longer exist but still feel alive in your thoughts. So even when life is quiet, you are not experiencing that quiet. Even when everything is okay, you are not feeling that okay, because you are not actually here. You are somewhere between what has already happened and what has not yet happened. And in that space, anxiety is created. Not because anything is wrong around you, but because your mind is disconnected from where your body actually is. There is a gap, a distance between your physical reality and your mental reality. And that distance creates tension. Because peace only exists in one place, the present moment. It does not exist in the past you keep replaying. It does not exist in the future you keep imagining. It only exists here, where your breath is, where your body is, where life is actually happening. But when your attention is always somewhere else, you miss it. You miss the simplicity of the moment. You miss the calm that is already around you. You miss the stillness that does not need to be created, only noticed. And the more your mind keeps escaping the present, the more restless you begin to feel, because your system is not designed to live in imagined time for too long. It needs grounding. It needs connection. It needs to return to what is real. But your mind has been trained to move, to jump, to wander without stopping. And because of that, being present starts to feel difficult, almost unnatural, almost like something you have to force. But presence is not something you create. It is something you return to. It is already here. It has always been here. You just keep leaving it. Every time your mind drifts too far, you leave this moment. Every time you get lost in thought, you step away from what is real. And slowly, that becomes your normal way of living in your head instead of living in your life. But the moment you notice this, everything begins to shift. The moment you gently bring your attention back to your breath, to your body, to what is in front of you right now, that gap begins to close. You start to feel grounded again. You start to feel connected again. And slowly, the noise begins to settle. Not because you forced your mind to stop, but because you stopped following it everywhere it goes. You begin to realize that you don't have to chase every thought. You don't have to travel with every idea. You don't have to live in every imagined moment. You can stay here, right here, where nothing is wrong, where nothing is missing, where everything is simply as it is. And in that return, again and again, you begin to rediscover a quiet kind of peace. Not something dramatic, not something overwhelming, but something simple, something steady, something that has always been waiting for you. In the one place your mind kept leaving, the present moment, you trust every thought, even when it's quietly lying to you. A thought appears in your mind, and before you even notice it, you believe it. There is no pause, no distance, no questioning. It feels real the moment it arrives, and you follow it as if it is telling you the truth. If the thought says something feels wrong, you start feeling uneasy. If it says you should be worried, your body responds with tension. If it whispers that something might go bad, your mind begins preparing for it. And all of this happens so quickly, so automatically, that you don't even see the process. It just feels like reality. But what you don't realize is, not every thought is true. Not every thought is important. And not every thought deserves your belief. Some thoughts are just habits, patterns your mind has repeated so many times that they now feel familiar. Some thoughts are echoes from the past, old fears, old experiences, still playing quietly in the background. And some thoughts are simply random, appearing and disappearing without any real meaning. But because you never question them, they take control. They guide your emotions. They shape your mood. They decide how you feel about your life, even when nothing has actually changed. And this is where anxiety quietly begins to grow. Not from reality, but from thoughts you accepted without seeing clearly. Because once you believe a thought, your body reacts to it. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, your attention narrows, and suddenly, something that was only a thought starts to feel like a real problem. You start looking for evidence, you start connecting it to other ideas, you start building a story around it, and now you're no longer observing your thoughts, you are living inside them. But here is the deeper truth. A thought is just a mental event. It appears, it stays for a moment, and it disappears. It has no power on its own. It only gains power when you attach to it, when you believe it, when you follow it without awareness. If you watch closely, you will begin to see this. You will notice how quickly thoughts change, how one thought replaces another, how something that felt important a moment ago disappears completely the next moment, and yet, while it was there, it felt real, it felt urgent, it felt like something you had to solve. This is how the mind works. It presents thoughts, and if you don't question them, they become your reality. But the moment you create a small space, everything begins to shift. The moment you see a thought, and instead of following it, you simply observe it, something changes. You are no longer inside the thought, you are watching it. You begin to notice its movement, its pattern, its temporary nature, and slowly, you stop reacting to every thought that appears. You stop believing every story your mind creates. You stop turning every mental voice into truth. And in that space, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes lighter, quieter, less convincing, because you are no longer giving it automatic authority. You are no longer treating every thought as a command. You are simply seeing it for what it is, a passing activity, not a permanent reality. And the more you practice this, the more freedom you begin to feel. Because anxiety cannot survive in a mind that no longer believes everything it says. It slowly loses its grip. It slowly fades. Not because you forced it away, but because you stopped feeding it with blind belief. And for the first time, you begin to experience what it feels like to have thoughts without being controlled by them. The more you run from anxiety, the stronger it becomes. The moment anxiety appears, your first instinct is to get away from it. You don't want to feel it. You don't want to sit with it. You don't want to even look at it. So you move. You distract yourself. You pick up your phone. You open something. You try to fill your mind with anything that can pull you away from that feeling. And for a moment, it works. The feeling fades a little. Your attention shifts. It feels like you escaped it. But what you don't see is what just happened underneath. Every time you run from anxiety, you teach your mind something very powerful. You teach it that this feeling is dangerous. You teach it that this feeling must be avoided. You teach it that you are not safe when it appears, and your mind listens. It learns quickly. So the next time anxiety comes, it doesn't come quietly. It comes stronger. It comes louder. Because now your mind believes it needs to protect you from it, and slowly, a pattern begins to form. You feel anxiety, you run, you feel it again, you distract, you feel it again, you avoid, and each time it grows, not because it is becoming more real, but because you are giving it more importance, more attention, more resistance, and resistance is what feeds it. Because when you fight a feeling, you hold on to it. When you try to push it away, you keep it alive. When you treat it like a threat, your body reacts as if it is one. Your breathing changes, your chest tightens, your mind becomes more alert. And now, what started as a small sensation turns into something overwhelming. But here is what changes everything. Anxiety is not the problem. Your reaction to it is, because anxiety on its own is just a wave. It rises, it moves, and if left alone, it falls. But when you run from it, you interrupt that natural process. You stop it from passing. You keep it active. You give it energy. And that is why it keeps returning. Not to harm you, but because it was never allowed to finish. So what happens if you stop running? What happens if, for once, you stay? You feel it, without trying to fix it, without trying to escape it, without labeling it as something bad. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. It will tell you to leave. It will tell you to distract yourself. But if you stay, just for a moment longer, you begin to notice something surprising. The feeling is not as powerful as it seemed. It moves, it shifts, it changes, and slowly it begins to soften. Not because you forced it to go away, but because you stopped feeding it. You stopped reacting to it like it was a threat. You allowed it to exist without turning it into something bigger. And in that moment, you break the pattern. You show your mind something new. You show it that this feeling is not dangerous, that you don't need to run, that you are safe, even when it appears. And the more you do this, the weaker it becomes. Not instantly, not all at once, but slowly, steadily, naturally. Because anxiety cannot grow in a space where it is no longer feared. And over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes something you can simply observe, something you can sit with, something that no longer controls you. And that is the shift. Not escaping anxiety, but outgrowing the need to run from it. Stillness feels scary because you've forgotten how to rest in it. There is a kind of silence that most people avoid, not because it is dangerous, but because it feels unfamiliar. The moment everything becomes still, no noise, no distraction, no movement, you start to feel something inside you. Not peace at first, but discomfort. A quiet unease that slowly rises, as if something is not right. And your first instinct is to break it, to reach for something, to create noise, to fill the space, because staying in that stillness feels difficult, almost like you don't belong there. But the truth is, stillness is not the problem. It only feels that way because you have spent so much of your life avoiding it. You have been moving constantly, thinking constantly, filling every moment with something. Even when you were alone, your mind was never quiet. It was always busy, always active, always doing something. So now, when you sit in stillness, your mind doesn't know what to do. It feels exposed. It feels like it lost control because there is nothing to hold on to, nothing to chase, nothing to distract you from yourself. Just awareness, just presence, just you, as you are. And that can feel uncomfortable at first, because you are not used to meeting yourself without noise. You are not used to being with your thoughts without reacting to them. You are not used to sitting without trying to escape the moment. So your mind resists. It creates thoughts, it creates urges, it pushes you to move, to check, to think, to do something, anything, to get out of that still space. But if you pause and gently stay, something begins to shift. You start to notice that stillness is not empty. It is not lacking. It is not something to fear. It is simply a space where nothing is being added, a space where everything is allowed to settle, where your mind slowly begins to slow down, where your body begins to relax, where your breath becomes softer, deeper, calmer. And the longer you stay without reacting, without escaping, without filling the silence, the more that discomfort begins to fade, not suddenly, but gradually, like a wave losing its strength. And beneath that discomfort, something else starts to appear, something quieter, something softer, a sense of ease, a sense of space, a sense of being without pressure. And in that moment, you begin to realize something important. Stillness was never the problem. It was always the doorway, a doorway you kept avoiding because you were never shown how to walk through it. But now you begin to remember. You begin to relearn something simple, yet powerful. How to sit without needing to move. How to be without needing to become something else. How to exist without adding anything to the moment. And in that space, you find a kind of rest that no distraction can give you, a kind of peace that does not depend on anything outside of you. And slowly, stillness stops feeling scary. It starts to feel natural. It starts to feel safe. It starts to feel like home. Because you are no longer running from yourself. You are finally sitting with yourself and realizing there was never anything to fear in the first place. So now, just pause for a moment, take a slow breath, and look at what you've been carrying all this time. You thought something was wrong with you. You thought this anxiety meant your life was off, broken, incomplete. But now you see it differently. Nothing was wrong. You were just living inside a mind that never learned how to rest. You were following every thought without stepping back. You were running from every feeling without understanding it. You were searching for problems even in moments that were already peaceful. And that quiet anxiety you feel, it was never your enemy. It was just a signal that your mind is tired, a signal that you've been holding on too tightly, a signal that it's time to slow down, not to fix everything, not to control everything, but to finally let go. Let go of the constant thinking. Let go of the need to understand everything. Let go of the fear that something is always about to go wrong, because right now, in this exact moment, nothing is happening. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is falling apart. This moment is already enough, and you are allowed to rest in it. You don't need to solve anything to feel peace. You don't need to become someone else to feel calm. You don't need to fight your mind to feel free. You just need to stop following it everywhere it goes. So next time that feeling comes, don't panic, don't run, just pause and watch it, feel it, without fear. Let it rise, without resistance, let it pass, without holding it. And slowly, you will notice something beautiful. The thoughts will come, but they won't control you. The feelings will rise, but they won't stay. And the silence that once felt uncomfortable will begin to feel like home, because peace was never missing. It was always there, waiting behind the noise. And now, for the first time, you are finally learning how to return to it.